Hey guys, it's Madison. As promised, I'm delivering videos this month on the darker side of love, and this video is about yanderes and the stalker with a crush trope. Obviously, this entire video is going to be about stalking and abusive relationships, so if these topics bother you, you should head out now. According to Anime Wiki, yandere is a Japanese term for a person who is initially very gentle and loving to someone before their devotion becomes destructive in nature, often resulting in violence and brutality. The term comes from the words yandere, which means emotional and mental illness, and dere, which means to show affection. I personally had no idea what this term meant until I started reading a Steve Rogers fanfic, and then I was like, wait, why is Captain America acting so weird? And then I googled the term. Yandere was originally used mostly in anime, but now it seems to be used a lot more frequently in fanfiction as a way of describing characters, usually alternate universe characters, that have taken a dark turn. Although I started off thinking it was really weird, I now kind of like this kind of fiction, especially when it's characters you wouldn't ever suspect of having these kind of dark tendencies, like Steve Rogers. Although there's definitely some characters where it's hard to imagine they could be anything other than yanderes. Okay. I've noticed yanderes are pretty common in 3 areas: fanfiction, horror stories, and otome games, where the goal is usually for your character to end up dating one of the other characters. And apparently, a lot of the times, one of them is a yandere. Have fun figuring out which one might kill you if you reject them. So, the yandere ending is usually technically the bad ending, but if you end up with any of the characters, odds are you and your boyfriend will both end up murdered by the yandere. So the point is that all otome games are much bleaker than any of us realized. Yanderes exist on a spectrum with some subcategories. The tamest of these is essentially the stalker with a crush trope, which is why I wanted to discuss both of these topics in the same video. But the stalker with a crush doesn't always take such a dark turn. There are even some stories where this trope is played as a positive thing, such as in Where the Heart Is, whenever Forney stalks Novely after she comes to the library looking for a book on trees. He ends up saving her life, and then the stalking presumably stops after they become friends. This trope doesn't always end at Crazy Street, but since this isn't a contemporary romance channel, we're going to be talking about the crazies. In real life, most romantic stalking is done by people who either suspect their partner of cheating, or by people who are just a few kibbles short of a bag of dog food. Yes, there are some stalkers with a crush that are genuinely looking out for their love interest's well-being, although aside from Forney, I honestly can't think of one. And this doesn't stop some writers from trying to play off regular stalking as being romantic, such as whenever Edward breaks into Bella's house in order to watch her sleep, and she genuinely finds this flattering. At the other end of the yandere spectrum, you have the completely delusional type, who believe that the object of their affection returns their feelings or that they are meant to be together. When rejected, they lash out, often killing the people that they believe to be obstacles between them being with their true love. If their true love does not return their feelings after they went to the trouble of murdering someone in order for them to be together, they'll often turn against their loved one. This is unfortunately the pattern of a lot of real-life stalkers and is the most extreme form of yandere, minus the sadist yandere, which is just like this except they also enjoy inflicting emotional and physical pain on their loved one just for fun, because sometimes being a regular psycho just isn't enough. As you move a little bit away from that extreme, you have the obsessed, controlling type of yandere, who doesn't necessarily want to hurt you or anyone in your life. They just want to know what you're doing at all times. They will send dozens of text messages asking where you are, they'll want to know who you're with at all times, and they want to know everything about you. Every single thing. A little bit more controlling than the last type is the monopoly type of yandere, who don't just want to know who you're with, they want to control who you're with. And they often socially isolate their loved one so that they are the only one that their loved one spends any time with. These type of yanderes are deeply insecure, and their behavior will often escalate to punishing their loved one if they don't do what they want them to do. There's also the restraint type, the kind that will kidnap you and lock you away somewhere because that's the only way that you'll see you two are meant to be together. Or they'll kidnap you even if they aren't sure their feelings will be returned because they just have to have you, like Frederick Clegg from The Collector. Of course, many yanderes may shift from one type to another depending on how desperate they get. The one thing all yanderes have in common is obsession, although a lot of them seem to think that they are somehow protecting their loved one. either by locking them away from the big bad world or killing anyone who even looks at their loved one the wrong way. Now I'm going to go over a couple examples of yanderes, beginning with the incredibly underrated movie P2. In P2, Thomas actually expects Angela to be attracted to him even after he kidnaps her, chases her through a parking lot, kills 2 of her coworkers, and sicks his dog on her. God, I don't know why she wouldn't find that charming. Another example is Hannibal Lecter, in the books, movies, and show. In the books and movies, he's obsessed with Clarice. In the show, he takes his yandere tendencies to a new level when instead of fleeing from the police, he decides to stay behind and risk jail time so that he can get all stabby stab stab on Will, because in his words, we couldn't leave without you. Aww. Also in season 1, Hannibal sniffs Will's hair like it's the most normal thing ever, and Will responds with Bella Swan levels of obliviousness to this incredibly creepy, inappropriate behavior. Another example is Brahms Hillshire. He's a good example of an isolation yandere because he doesn't want Greta to leave the house and he wants to monopolize all of her time even though she literally doesn't know that he exists. He even threatens to murder her friend if she doesn't come back to him, which is a surefire way to make someone want to stay with you, right? Joe Goldberg is one of the most popular yanderes in fiction right now. Even people who aren't that into horror are drawn to Joe's charming and dark personality. He starts off as a stalker with a crush, but his behavior quickly escalates whenever he realizes that the object of his affection is distracted by another guy. So he does what any yandere would do in that situation, and he gets rid of the obstacle. And his behavior only escalates from there. Yanderes and the stalker with a crush trope are very common in thrillers, horror, and some dark romantic fiction. Next week, I'll be doing a video on why people are drawn to these archetypes called Why Do We Love Joe Goldberg? If you like this video and you want to see more trope talk, book reviews, writing advice, and horror reviews, be sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next week.